But I do want to start on the topics of the day here entering Tuesday. And to me, the biggest topic in college sports is that prime time has arrived in college football. Deion Sanders was named the head coach at Jackson State, a SWAC, historically black university, a school or an HBCU. So yeah, historically black college or university, whatever. He was named head coach at Jackson State. And I just got to say, I think this is great for college football. I think this is awesome for the SWAC and HBCUs. And so let's get into some details about it and why I love it so much and why I'm so fired up here on a Tuesday. First of all, for people who do not know, this isn't some, fly-by-night kind of deal. Deion has been very publicly saying that he wants to coach college football for a while now. For people who don't know much about what he's been doing since he left the NFL, obviously he has a media career. He's with Barstool Sports now, was with the NFL Network, but he's also been coaching high school football in Texas for years. He's had a couple kids already play Division I football. His youngest son, I believe, is committed to FAU, and he has been an assistant coach at a very successful high school in Texas for several years now. My understanding is he is the offensive coordinator at this school in Texas that has won 3 straight national championships. And oh, by the way, he played in the NFL forever and is one of the best players in NFL history. So it's not as though he does not know the sport of football. But in addition to the high school coaching stuff, he has made it very clear that he wants to transition to the college game. If you remember last year, Florida State, they fire Willie Taggart, the job opens up, they end up with Mike Norvell, but there were all sorts of reports and stories that Florida State actually really did consider Deion Sanders for their head coach. Deion, of course, played at Florida State, one of the most successful players, if not the most successful player in the history of that football program at the NFL level. And so there were rumors that he almost got that job. He didn't end up getting it. They went with Mike Norvell, but he has wanted to coach college football, and now he will have the opportunity at Jackson State, as I said, an HBCU in Jackson, Mississippi. And yeah, I think it's awesome. And I do understand where some people, even with the high school background, will say, Torres, come on, man, you're crazy. This is too much. You can't just go from being a high school offensive coordinator to being a head coach at the Division I level. He's never been a head coach at any level, and certainly not at the college level. He's never coached in college. You can't do it. Well, first of all, I would say this. We have seen coaches go straight from high school to the NFL before. They have been head coaches, but they've been guys that you never heard of that were just really successful high school coaches that have gone to college football. UNLV just fired a guy named Tony Sanchez last year, who was a very successful high school coach that went straight from high school to coaching at UNLV. Todd Dodge, I believe his name, went from high school to North Texas. So it's not as though that a person has never gone straight from high school to a head coaching job at the college level. And oh, by the way, nobody has the credentials that Deion Sanders does as a player. And so when I look at this, what I say very simply is I have no problem with him getting a head coaching job, having never coached college football before. And I would also add that on top of the fact that other guys have done this before, it's not as though he has never been a head coach. And look, it's also not, or never been a coach, period. And also it's not as though we're talking about him getting the Florida State job, the Clemson job, the Alabama job. It's Jackson State. And so to me, for people that are saying, oh, I don't know, this feels like a gimmick. First of all, so what if it's a gimmick? It's Jackson State. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and claim to be a Jackson State football historian. And maybe they have some incredible football history that I don't know about. And I actually do believe that they have been pretty good through the years. But the bottom line is they are a FCS team that frankly doesn't get very much exposure anyway. I'm guessing you probably did not know until Monday morning when Deion Sanders took this job that the job was even open. And so when I look at this situation, I essentially see it as a no-lose situation for Jackson State. Nobody knows anything about them. Nobody's talking about them. You now have brought in an NFL Hall of Famer with 1.5 million followers on Instagram. So every time he posts something on Instagram about the school or at practice or a game highlight or something, You immediately have exposure that you would never get anywhere else. I think it will be a story worth following. I do think because, again, Jackson State is in one of these conferences that has not played football this fall and will play in the spring, I think there will be increased interest to some degree when they do kick off. You get Deion Sanders right away. You get him for a football season that will start in January or February. And let's be honest, there's going to be nothing else going on at that time of the year anyway. So unless it's an NFL Sunday, unless it's an NFL Thursday or Monday, if it's a regular Saturday afternoon, Jackson State's going to be the only story in town. There's not going to be much other football to watch. So you'll probably flip it on in passing if Jackson State's playing on ESPNU or CBS Sports Network or something. You'll probably flip it on just to see what Deion's doing. Not to mention SportsCenter, Barstool Sports, any of these outlets that cover college football will be curious to see what Deion Sanders does. So even if this is a gimmick, which I don't think it is, Deion's been very public about his passion for wanting to coach college football. Even if it is a gimmick, you get Deion for 2 or 3 years. It increases the exposure of your football team, of your conference, of the city of Jackson, Mississippi. And oh, by the way, it's great for HBCUs. It's great for small school college football. You have one of the 5 best football players maybe ever coaching your team, and a guy that, oh, by the way, loves the cameras and loves the media. It's not as though you signed, say, Patrick Ewing, who doesn't like to do interviews and isn't a very dynamic personality. You're going to have Deion Sanders basically becoming the face of your university. I just think it's great, and I think it's incredible, and even if it is some kind of gimmick, even if he isn't serious, you get 2 years of Deion Sanders exposure for absolutely nothing. So that's why I think it makes sense, and that's on the idea that it doesn't work out. And here's my thought. What if it does? What if Deion does build something sustainable? What if he does take it serious, and I do believe that he will? Think about what Jackson State can potentially do here in terms of actual football. First of all, remember, Deion is a guy that played in the NFL for years, played at Florida State, is well connected. I would think that he will probably be able to put together a coaching staff full of guys with NFL experience, full of guys that likewise would not be coming to Jackson State to coach if it was not for Deion Sanders. And so you have that aspect. You're going to be able to bring in a coaching staff that, frankly, you probably wouldn't be able to. I know for certain you wouldn't be able to if Deion Sanders wasn't there. At the same time, Deion will also be able to sell the fact, hey, I know what it takes to get to the NFL, and I know people in the NFL. So come play for me, come work hard, come prepare to play in the NFL, and I'm going to do everything I can to get you an opportunity to play in the NFL. And so when I look at the potential for what Deion can do in terms of not just coaching, not just X's and O's, and part of that does fall on the assistant coaches and other people to game plan and all that stuff. I mean, think about it from a recruiting perspective, right? Like, I don't think he's going to beat Alabama or Clemson or LSU for prospects. And it was interesting because he did say in his opening press conference, if you want to play in the league, come play for us. There's nothing that Alabama can do for you that we can't. That feels like a little bit of hyperbole, and so I will say I don't think he's going to be beating Alabama for recruits, but I mean, if you're a kid that's like a fringe SEC player that's probably going to end up in Conference USA at Western Kentucky or UAB or somewhere like that, doesn't it make sense to go to Jackson State? Doesn't it make sense to go play for Deion? Doesn't it make sense to go play for a coaching staff that is almost certainly going to have a ton of NFL experience? And oh, by the way, it's not even just those fringe SEC guys. I was thinking about this before I came on the podcast. You know who the new head coach at Mississippi State is? It's Mike Leach. Yes, he coaches in the SEC. Yes, everybody wants to play in the SEC. But when I think about Mike Leach, it's not. I think he's fun. I think he's an awesome personality. I can't wait to see him in the SEC. I can't wait to see him against Coach O on Saturday afternoon when Mississippi State opens up against LSU. But it's not like Mike Leach, who's in your own state, is a guy that's known for producing a ton of NFL players. Like, yeah, maybe a quarterback and maybe at wide receiver. But like if you're a defensive end or a defensive back or an offensive tackle or a tight end, I don't know that Mike Leach is going to get you to the NFL. Kind of the same with Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's an awesome personality. I'm glad he's at Ole Miss. But I mean, if you're, again, a defensive back, a linebacker, a tight end, like is Lane Kiffin the guy that you want to go play for? Is he going to elevate you to get to that next level? Maybe if you're a skill position guy on offense, but if you're a defensive player, if you're a lineman, I don't know. So I just think this is going to be so fascinating. I think it'll be so interesting. And to kind of wrap up, what it really kind of reminds me of is Penny Hardaway at Memphis. And obviously, look, for people that are new to the show, we talk a ton of college basketball on this show. And, listen, I know Penny Hardaway's been criticized for a lot of stuff, and I know Penny Hardaway is in a different situation because it is his alma mater, and it is a school that actually has aspirations to compete at a national level. But I think it's the same kind of concept, right? When Memphis hired Penny Hardaway, he was a very famous alum, but he's also a guy that brings instant exposure. He is a guy that SportsCenter wants to feature. He is a guy that, you don't have to be a college basketball junkie to kind of associate with, right? We all remember Penny Hardaway as a player. We all remember Penny Hardaway, and when he is available for media availability, it's not often that a show like First Take with Stephen A. or Colin Cowherd or someone like that will talk college basketball, but when you have the opportunity to bring Penny Hardaway on your show, you're going to do it. And so I know the deal at Memphis is a little bit shaky, and I know that we have a lot of Kentucky fans and Tennessee fans that listen to this show that would kind of sit there and say, well, what has Penny Hardaway done at Memphis? And I get it. And I would add, I know he's got the NCAA on his back right now, but assuming that the NCAA doesn't just crush Memphis, I'm kind of sitting here saying Memphis is still in better shape than they were pre-Penny Hardaway. They still have a team that I believe is right around a fringe top 25 team this year. They still have a team that can make a deep NCAA tournament run with a couple guys that can play in the NBA. They're still recruiting at a high level. They still would have gotten a couple prospects in the top 5 of their class if things had broken a little bit different this past year. And so to me, I still think, at least as of right now, Penny Hardaway has been a net gain for the University of Memphis. Again, I'm not saying that they weren't disappointing last year, but are you meaning to tell me that they're in a worse position now than if they had kept Tubby Smith? Because I don't believe that. They have a really talented roster coming back this year, and if it hadn't been for DJ Jeffrey's injury last year, they probably would have been a team comfortably in the NCAA tournament. So I do like the analogy between Penny Hardaway and Deion Sanders, and I'll just say it. I do like Deion Sanders at Jackson State. I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if he's going to the Hall of Fame. I don't know, by the way, if he could potentially take another job if he has success. I mean, I could see Florida State, if it doesn't work out with Mike Norvell, potentially pursuing him. Maybe some other schools in the Florida, Texas, somewhere in that range where he has ties. But I'm just saying, I think for Jackson State, it is a no-lose scenario. And I am so excited to just see if this works and if it doesn't. And like I said, I think it brings great exposure to Jackson State. And I do think it's very interesting. And I am excited to see how it works.